Well, thanks for clicking on to the Monday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. A little bit of a technical video today. I want to speak a little bit more in detail with regards to the behaviour of the Madden-Julian oscillation, which is fairly strong in phase 3 at the moment, and how it may have influence on the hemispheric pattern. I have to admit, my knowledge and understanding of such physical drivers is a little bit foggy, if I'm being honest with you, and a bit weaker than I would like it to be, but I will certainly endeavour to try and look at this and show you some of my thoughts. Because, of course, we are approaching the end of January, and all questions are around how is February going to be? What is winter's finale month going to produce with regards to any such cold, snow, wintry pattern and whatnot? Certainly up until now, I'll be honest with you, I think it's been a pretty decent winter. Some people in parts of the Midlands who have barely seen any snow may argue with that, but I think when you combine in terms of snow events as well as cold, we've seen some very, very impressive cold. Even this morning, a temperature of minus 8.4 Celsius recorded at Heathrow Airport. Bear in mind, 7 months ago, the temperature was 40.2 Celsius. But this morning's minus 8.4 at Heathrow was in fact the coldest since December 2010 for that site. But more impressively, it's the coldest January temperature since 1987. So, obviously there's been always a lot of arguments over the positioning of that station right beside the runway at Heathrow, or one of the runways at Heathrow. Almost a kind of overheated station, if you will, if you want to argue against the climate change stuff and whatnot. And we're not going to get into that one just now. But certainly, like I say, it's very interesting what's going on around the hemisphere at the moment with the minus 62.7 Siberia, minus 52.3, the coldest temperature ever recorded in China. And we're seeing other interest in cold, the coldest December since 74 for Iceland, for example. And even the dramatic change that we're seeing this month, January. Remember, the opening 10 days, exceptionally warm. Now we're starting to see the average coming closer to average in terms of, eroding that high anomaly during the first half of January. To even touch that is very, very impressive indeed. And let's not forget, we had a very cold December overall as well, despite the fact that we'll warm things up during the run up to Christmas and into the new year. Cold lingered over the north of the British Isles, and this is the last 60-day period. And yes, warmer than normal across Europe, as you can see here. But look at most of the UK, average in the south, colder than average, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and Scotland here. So over the last 60 days, it has been below normal, and this goes firmly against some people, even on this on the channel that subscribe, who have just been harping on time after time regarding mild, mild, mild. It has not been mild, mild, mild. And one thing I want to say is the fact that the stratospheric polar vortex has not been involved in this winter. I think it's been a very impressive winter, granted that aspect. So, we're doing pretty darn well with regards to snow and cold, despite the fact that the stratospheric polar vortex has not been involved whatsoever this year. And I think, without blowing my own trumpet, I think my winter forecast has near enough been as close to spot on as possible, because I've, up until now, called it pretty right, actually. The cold December, warming towards Christmas, was seen a warm start to January in 2023, and the prospects of a colder second half to January has materialised, if you ask me. And despite the fact that the UK is warming up, we're actually seeing the coldest temperatures of the entire winter across the south. So it has been a pretty good winter, I think, overall in terms of the forecast and the reality of the pattern as well. It's not been a particularly boring winter, that's for sure, unlike some recent ones. But the Madden-Julian oscillation is a big factor here. What I want to show you first and foremost is this is the view of the GFS 2-meter temperature anomaly are actually the 2 meter temperature, sorry, full stop. And one thing I want to point out is this is, of course, looking over top of the pole. Now, we've had up until now the core of cold over Siberia, where we've seen the coldest temperatures since 2002. Some stations within Siberia recording its coldest temperature ever. And like I've said before, based on everything that I've seen and read over the last decade or so, isn't it fascinating that despite the fact that the planet is warming or seemingly warming up, we're still able to achieve all-time record breaking cold in like I say, a seemingly warming world. And these all-time records are falling in places that are the coldest in the entire northern hemisphere. So that to me is telling me something. That to me is telling me that we've got a bit of a fight back going on with nature. And do we eventually see a rubber band effect, a snap, and a bit of a turnaround taking place? Now, of course, we do have a La Nina that is still in play at the moment, but it looks as if an El Nino may well develop during the springtime coming up in the next few months here. And, one could argue that that is going to boost the global temperature as we release more water vapor into the atmosphere and whatnot. But let's wait and see what happens. But certainly, I think this is a bit of a fight back type winter that we've got going at the moment. Some very interesting things that are taking place. And one thing I want to point out here, and this was something that I did allude to way back at the beginning of January, that we would see a build-up of cold back over the far north of Asia. That has happened. We've seen a significant pullback over North America as the core of cold is focused over the Asia side of the pole. But in the last several days, what we've seen is that core of cold getting forced south with warming building over the eastern side of the Arctic region that has been forcing Siberian cold southwards into China, breaking all-time records here. We're seeing the Koreas and Japan all of a sudden, after record warm just a week ago, we're now going the opposite way altogether. So this has been an extreme winter for extreme warmth and extreme cold back to back. And you don't, if I'm being honest, you don't get much more fascinating winters than this, really, when you look at everything combined. But we are seeing a relatively cold Europe now as well after the warmth. And of course, the core of the cold, like I say, is over the Asia side of the pole at the moment here. But as we play through this loop here, I want to show you something here. What's quite interesting is the fact that I think there's a little bit of you could argue that there's a little bit of a cross-polar flow going on here. And what we're starting to see is some of that core of cold crossing over top of the Arctic, over the top of the pole, and into North America. So as we go from January into the early portion of February, you notice that we're switching things around. We're shifting the core of coldest air within the Northern Hemisphere from Asia into North America. So therefore, it looks highly likely that we're going to start to see Arctic intrusions back into the United States again. And one could argue, based on everything that's going on, including the Manchulian Oscillation, remember now here, we've now got the -50s over Greenland, possibly returning back into the northern portion of Canada as well. And this will kind of start to push southwards into North America. So one could argue that as we increase the thermal gradient over eastern North America, we're going to increase the strength of the jet stream over the North Atlantic. Therefore, the North Atlantic Oscillation is likely to stay positive, but one could argue that with the push and lean of core cold over North America, do we start to see the jet stream getting deflected further south? So despite having a still Atlantic driven pattern, do we start to see it shifting further south and colder polar maritime or colder maritime air gets entrained off North America, riding the jet stream and into the British Isles and Ireland here? I think we're going to turn still unsettled, but I think we're going to start to lean on the colder side of the temperature pendulum, so to speak, as we progress into week 1, possibly even into week 2 of February here. So this is something that I'm looking at the moment. that I think we're overall going to start to see pushes of Arctic air, the core of coldest air in the entire hemisphere, out of Siberia and into North America. That then interacts with the jet stream, changes the pattern on our side of the planet, and therefore what we need to see is, I think we're going to start to see more in terms of colder pattern, but remaining fairly unsettled. But if you shift the jet stream far enough south, you're actually seeing all the disturbed weather focusing more possibly in Iberia, possibly even into the northwest of Africa as well. So it's just ideas that I've got at the moment here that I'm kind of toiling with at the moment here. Because if you look at the 850 temperature anomaly chart here, you can see in a sense what starts to show up here. So we're starting to lose the cold over Asia. We're focusing it over North America. We're we've got a strong push of warmth, if you notice, up across the far northwest of Russia into the Arctic region. This would then suggest to me that we're forcing the jet stream further south. So let's go back to the current period here and see what it's showing. So the focus of core of coldest air at 850 is over, fairly displaced fairly far south actually over parts of Asia. So we've seen the coldest temperature of the entire winter in Mongolia, for example. I think it was this morning at just under minus 40 Celsius here. But if we play through the loop, you can see what takes place. So we're starting to see the forcing of warm air out of the Atlantic towards the Arctic region. And then, of course, you start to see the focus of core of cold. So we're seeing that warm air over the Arctic region. That to me is suggesting that we're transporting air from Asia across the top of the pole into North America. And then as we start to push the Arctic air south, we're increasing the thermal gradient, warm air trying to pull north out of the Caribbean, cold air pushing south. We're increasing the strength of the jet stream here. And then we've got plenty of interesting things going on. It's colder air over Greenland, cold air over North America, warm air getting lifted north. And this is a very complicated setup here. We could see some wild back and forth in terms of warmth and cold, but it looks as if look at this here, blast of bitterly cold air at 850 coming off North America, crossing the Atlantic, and then moving into the British Isles, albeit it moderates by the time it reaches our shores. That's Monday the 6th of February. I'm not saying that that is going to happen. We're way, way out in terms of that, but I'm just showing you what I think we could be going towards as we head into February. I think February is going to be a tremendous month of weather, something that we need to keep an eye on, and I think it could be quite an exciting month to come in terms of winter weather. Let's see if the GFS ensemble is updated. So this is the upcoming 5 days of the GFS ensemble in terms of 2 meter temperature anomalies. Still cold, you notice here through the 1 to 5 day period. England, Wales were continuing to bring down that anomaly. Look at France, look at Iberia, Northwest Africa, still warm. Northern portions of Europe, Eastern Europe as well. The 6 to 10 day period here, you notice that we're moderating things somewhat, but we've got colder to the north, colder to the south as well. And then the 8 to 12 day, it looks as if this is what the chart looks like overall. Man-Julian oscillation, by the way, is something that I do struggle to understand it fully. But notice here as we play through this loop, the greens represent upward motion, the oranges represent sinking. Notice here how strong it becomes over the Indian Ocean. We're going to increase rainfall over India and many portions of Southeast Asia as well. Look at the strong sinking over the East Pacific, North America and whatnot. How this interacts with the overall pattern aloft is, of course, the big question. We've got a few interesting tweets here by James Peacock representing that we've got phase 3 response except anomalously high Pacific Arctic region and also a high further south relative to normal across Europe here. So, the general phase 3 response would represent this look here with a high over the North Pacific, high over the Azores here, but in reality, it's actually indicating that we've got high a little bit further west and south west of the British Isles here overall. And the reason why I'm rushing this is because I'm, as always, running out of time because we've got so many things to look at here. But basically, how much interaction we see with regards to this remains to be seen. Ran out of time. Have a great day. See you again tomorrow with more. Bye for now.